Do you know your rights? Our Know Your Rights sheets are your easy-to-use guide to key employment rights, conditions and union advice on issues including leave, work health and safety, workload and more.
Hello and welcome to Western Teacher Live, the podcast of the State School Teachers Union of Western Australia. My name is Bob Figg and I'm very pleased to have with me today Lindsay Hale, the School Leaders Consultant for the Union, and he's also the man charged with making Facing the Facts, the report into the review of public education in Western Australia that was led by Dr. Carmen Lawrence. Something more than a report. Lindsay, welcome.
Thank you. G'day, Bob.
Good to have you here. And of course, the problem with reports like this is all too often they end up either under a table leg somewhere or, in the best case, on a bookcase, opened and then never seen again. And what we're trying to do, or what you're trying to do in particular, is make sure it's front and centre for all the decision makers.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. We've been, since the report was launched, we have been casting our net as wide as we possibly can to make sure we get maximum exposure and get as many people, both key decision makers, but also just ordinary members of the community and of course our own union members across this and able to have it come up at the right moments in whatever conversation they might be having or whatever piece of work they might be involved in. So to give you a few examples, we are now engaged with both our Minister for Education and the Director General of Education, and hope soon that through Eric, serious conversation around Facing the Facts is going to begin. So that's a watch this space for term one. But we've also been corresponding with a raft of other Cabinet Ministers, really for two reasons. One is many of them are human services ministers who Facing the Facts goes beyond just education, and it goes to matters like disadvantage and school readiness, wellbeing, mental health, you name it. So our President's been corresponding with all of those relevant ministers and drawing to their attention the particular recommendations that might have heightened relevance for their portfolio. Also broadly to reinforce the message about poverty, and the fact that that's a whole of government, whole of community issue that affects education. Also to keep on banging the drum for properly funding public education. And finally to make sure when matters related to education might perhaps come up in a cabinet discussion, there are a number of ministers around the table who are aware of Facing the Facts.
And that is really important. So if we start down at the other end of the scale too with our members, there were some concerns when Facing the Facts was becoming a reality that it might be a bit up there at the higher level of discussion, but that it wouldn't relate to members. I think it's been really interesting, hasn't it, to see the reaction of our members. In person, we had one person at State Council talking about it who teared up because It was the first time they felt they'd been heard.
Yeah, it was actually... Yes, I think we all expected that session to be impressive and interesting, but I don't think we expected it to be as moving as it turned out to be, as we saw some of the reactions of people to that sense that they were saying, I feel like finally I've been heard. So I think really in many ways, just because of timing, we were close to the end of the school year, we wanted people to be able to have a good break over the summer. Now, of course, we're still, in school land. This is a time when you're still cranking up for the new year. So we haven't been pressing on members too much, knowing that they're fully occupied. I will just note, though, the work that your team's been doing in terms of particularly around social media and some of the other comms, which has been terrific and obviously resonating well. But it is time now, when we'll begin with district councils this term, it is time now for us also to focus much more effort on our own members, making sure that they are fully conscious of the report, but also making sure they understand, for instance, how well this report, along with the Minister's own report, supports our current log of claims while we're in the bargaining process, and also so people in school communities can get an appreciation of, well, how can I now take this, say, to my P&C? How can I get this in front of my local member? as well as my colleagues.
And it's been quite interesting on the political side, at the party political level. The Minister spoke at the Labor State Conference towards the end of last year, just around about the time, in fact, that Facing the Facts was released, and acknowledged the importance of it. And the Minister's actually, to give him some credit, has referred regularly to this as being a real blueprint. By the way, if you're a member and you want to check out, or in fact a non-member, and you want to check out just the recommendations, perhaps the easiest way is via social media. So on Facebook, we've had run every recommendation separately over the past couple of months. There's 46 of them, so you can imagine it's been a fun time. But the interesting thing was the response from members was huge. The number of shared posts, the likes and everything else, all of your metrics on social media really showed how engaged members were. So you've just referred there, Lindsay, to the district council process. And for those who don't know, that's our local regional decision-making bodies. Each school falls within a district, which are loosely based around the electorates for the state elections. And they form into districts. So, for example, Butler or Kalamunda is another one. Kalgoorlie is another. You can sort of picture where they would be. And so we go to those district councils. They are a vital voice in the whole general agreement negotiation process and establishing our ask. So that's going to be really important in showing the direct relevance. Whilst Facing the Facts came after the log of claims was submitted, what it did show was evidence for the need for some of those claims to be met. And they're not just about teachers and school leaders, but they're about getting a better result in public education.
Yeah, so I think it's quite interesting to note actually on that. So we had Facing the Facts. Not long after that, we had the Understanding Teacher and School Leader Workload Report that the Minister had commissioned. And when you look at those two reviews and the current log of claims, I can tell you that there are 29 claims that can be seen to be directly supported by both reports, a further 4 that are directly supported by the red tape report alone, and a further 42 claims that can be directly supported by the Lawrence report. So we've got a situation where our folks in there doing the bargaining have got good evidence to bring to the table.
And it's on such a wide range of issues, and we can tell from our member responses, class sizes. Again, we get this, it's a contradiction. You want to reduce class sizes, and at the same time you're talking about a teacher shortage. Surely you're going to make the situation worse. But every response that we've had to Facing the Facts from members says that the size of classes being unmanageable is one of the things driving them out of the profession. So you have to make a stand at some point if you're going to stop the exodus of teachers.
Yeah, I know it does seem counterintuitive to some people that would be saying we desperately need to reduce class sizes at the very moment we've got a shortage. But the fact is, we have got many people in the community who are not teaching who could be. Many people who are teaching a small fraction of the time they might be, but they don't because they've reduced their hours as a way to cope, or they've left because they've just simply had enough. Now, flip side is, obviously, we're not calling on a radical overnight change for every class size. This would have to be something, what we're looking for is a commitment to move on class sizes over time. Steadily, start somewhere and move steadily towards some targets so people can see there's some hope, they can see there's some immediate action, but they can also see there's some hope. And bear in mind, we haven't had a change in class sizes since I started teaching back in the early 80s, 40 years. And we now have the biggest class sizes in the country. And I think one of the reasons this resonates with people, it resonates with teachers. Any of us who've worked in a classroom know. It's tough enough when you've got a big class, just the sheer volume of work. Layer on that, as the Lawrence report gives us great detail about, layer on that the growing complexity of the individuals in those classes, layer on that then the need for individual planning, and then think about all the follow-up a teacher has to do with a class anyway in terms of how the kid's going, academically, behavioural issues that arise, wellbeing issues, chasing up attendance, you name it, even just the day-to-day bureaucracy of administration in the school that has to be dealt with, this is all compounding on the teacher. It's intensifying the workload. And oftentimes, of course, it generates more heat because you've got this number of complex individuals all in the one space. And that impacts on teachers. Obviously, it impacts on kids. It also impacts on school leaders because more problems bubble up out of the classroom, and who's going to take care of that? So this is a massive source of pressure for the whole school organism, if you like. And the fascinating thing is, I think people really get it. So as you said, I mean, the evidence, the response on social media to the particular recommendation about class sizes was overwhelming. I've also found, though, interestingly, I've been getting around to all sorts of organisations, including, for instance, the Isolated Children's Parents Association is just one. Their members, many of their members live in small regional communities where there's a small public primary school, and when I talk to them about what I saw as the Lawrence Report's particular issues for regional education, they said, yes, but you've missed the most important one, class size. So it's on everybody's lips now. People are getting it.
It's interesting, and the Union commissioned social research, so a properly conducted research which polled 400 people by phone, I think it was, and then we had focus groups as well. So it was properly done. And the level of support for smaller class sizes, I think, surprised even the union. It was well over 50%, pushing 60%, I think memory serves me correctly. So the public know it too. So it is interesting. So how then does facing the facts become a factor in the decision making? How do we ensure that happens? And are we seeing any signs? You've mentioned ERIC, which for the non-experts who are listening, that is the current committee where the union and the department get together to look at core issues. But hopefully if that can be a much more cooperative decision-making process rather than just coming up to address problems that they find in the system post-issue. That might be one of the key recommendations, number 46, I think, in the Lawrence Report being met.
So, yeah, look, you make a good point, Bob. The recommendation 46 did call for a group co-chaired by the President of the Union and DG Education to focus on a positive approach to future thinking informed by facing the facts. So we haven't quite achieved that technically because we've been pointed in the direction of ERIC, an existing forum that normally is about solving problems. We are going to give that our best shot. We're going to go in there in good faith and hope that forum does turn out to be the right one for us to have that broad-ranging, positive, future-oriented conversation. And if it's not working as well as we'd like, well, we'll deal with that when the time comes. But for the moment, in good faith, we want to give it a red-hot go.
And of course, one of the things about going to the district councils and other areas is to some extent closing the loop too, because facing the facts, the magnificent work done by Dr. Carmen Lawrence and her team of experts, Dr. Scott Fitzgerald, Colin Pettit, the former Commissioner for Children and Young People, Dr. Robin White, and of course the work of Pam Pollard, who was the Executive Officer. That was very much informed by a very extensive face-to-face consultation process right across the state. We also had, I think it was over 100 written submissions, which was an incredible level of written submissions. So that's very much closing the loop. But it does show that this isn't a union-driven list of things the union wants. This is a report that reflects what the community feels about public education.
Yeah. So getting back to our members is an important part of that, and having various local level leaders in the union encouraging and facilitating that is going to be absolutely vital over probably a process that probably we're talking about a couple of years here. So we really want to sustain the focus. We don't want anybody to be able to just walk away from this. And of course, the other thing I've been doing in that sort of hiatus where we didn't want to be bothering people in schools, we've also been going back to engage with others who had input. So people like the current Commissioner for Children and Young People, the Retired Teachers Association, the Association for Services to Torture and Trauma Survivors, the ICPA I've already mentioned, the WA Council of social services, most recently the Deans of Education at ECU. And the great thing is, in conversation with them, we're able to say, well, look, you provided input to the report, here's how it now looks, here's what we're doing as a union, we're seeking your support, and it's unequivocal. People say, yes, this is the right message, and we will do everything to help get this message across.
And I think that's an excellent note on which to end this particular episode of Western Teacher Live, the Lawrence Report, Facing the Facts, driving a really broad community debate around education and what needs to change in public education so that teachers and school leaders have a more enjoyable workplace, they get properly respected and rewarded for it, and flowing from that, the results get better. So, Lindsay, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to everybody who's been listening to Western Teacher Live, and we'll be with you again in a couple of weeks, another subject around public education. If you want to see a copy of Facing the Facts, whether the full report or the recommendations, go to our website, www.sstuwa.org.au, and drop Facing the Facts in the search engine. You'll be able to access it there. So thank you for joining us, and we'll catch up with you later on Western Teacher Live.
SSTUWA members have access to many benefits. One of them is journey cover. If you have an accident while traveling to or from work, which results in your inability to work, you may be entitled to a benefit for lost income. Head to our website for more information.